regulations that said the compact urban, your arterials go a shorter distance than out of the general urban area in rural areas. And the collectors about the same, but a little less, and the locals are longer than they are over here. So each of the different facility types, when you're in a compact place, start to act a little more like each other. There's much less difference between them. So you don't do a major freeway going through your compact urban area. You put maybe a 4-lane or even a 2-lane arterial, and then the collectors locally will always be 2-lane. So it's just a more delicate balance of size and speed. The very important speed document that the fatalities go up dramatically as the speed goes up. It's always hard to visualize how a place may change over time. I guess in the last month, I have heard probably a dozen times people I was talking to say, well, that'll never change. You'll never see anything but what you have there right now. It's just impossible. That'll never change. So we employed some graphics to help people visualize what the possible changes are. This is a small town in South Carolina where we're proposing a roundabout on an arterial now. This is another street that comes in. Each one of the red buildings are brand new. They would be new over a 30 to 50 year period. Hopefully more toward a 30-year period. All the gray buildings exist already. So to demonstrate what that could look like, this is a photograph of the existing condition looking down this street in this direction. So we're looking toward this building. That's a future courthouse. Okay, so first you build the courthouse. Then on the right side they have a suburban Piggly Wiggly. That's kind of a southern food place. And that's right next to the Augerly Barbecue or something down there. But you change that to get the street changed, and then once the street improvements go in, you're signaling to the private sector it's time to do your more urban thing that you can do now based on the new regulations of form-based coding. So what you want to do is prompt the people that own the Piggly Wiggly property to go to the bank and say, Sarah, we can go to the bank and flip this and we can make about $7 million on a flip. That's okay. That's where the money comes from to do this kind of stuff in the private sector. So you get them to go ahead and build that new urban Piggly Wiggly. And then on the other side, eventually the county comes in, it does more office space on the other side of the road. And then you have a walkable place. Because there is enclosure on both sides, you feel comfortable there. You don't feel like you're going to get run over. The speeds are actually lower on the vehicles and advantage that. So that's kind of the difference between the suburban pattern and the more urban walkable pattern that we're talking about. It's not that we're saying everything has to be like this, but we're saying there's a large percentage of people walking around wishing they could walk around in places like this when they leave buildings. And right now, it's illegal to do this in most places in the United States. It's illegal. And by illegal, I mean the little death by 1,000 pinpricks. They say that you must have 12-foot lanes. That's in all the manuals. Oh, and you must have a setback on that building of 30 or 40 feet. Oh, you need 80 parking spaces for that Piggly Wiggly off-street. And oh no, you can't park on the street because that's an arterial and we have to take trips a long distance. So each one of those concatenated, all brought together, give you that drive-only suburban pattern. So that's what I mean when I say it's illegal to do walkable places, unless you have an enlightened planning staff and council of elected officials and interested citizens, and you want to do something in addition to the automobile-dominated place. Or you could just leave it like this. Thank you.
Okay, so I'm going to jump into the last few elements of the form-based code. Do this fairly quickly, and we're going to jump to questions and answers before we go to the dot exercise, so we get a chance to get your questions while you're refreshing your mind. So frontages is a concept that we regulate within the form-based code. And what the frontage really is it's how the building addresses the sidewalk or the public ground. And so there's different ways, based on different contexts, that this can do that. And so it's really important to think about this and to regulate this, and so this is part of the code. So this is kind of the quintessential shop front frontage. We look at the places like Flagstaff that have these really unique frontages, this really great two-story gallery. A lot of Grass Valley was a gold rush era community in California that we worked in. They actually had made it illegal to do these galleries, although they had a really strong history of this. So the form-based code reintroduced the galleries into downtown as well as the neighborhood sort of commercial areas. And so, really great sort of reinforcing unique aspects of Flagstaff in particular. And this is just another frontage that I like. It's once again that brownstone townhouse in south of downtown, where it's just a really sort of, as you're walking along this space and you're engaged by this stair, it's actually a really comfortable environment. And so looking and adjusting those frontages sort of very locally, and then in the end you'll see diagrams similar to this that will be used to regulate and illustrate where the different frontages are allowed, which frontage type is allowed in which form-based zone. And so that's a concept we'll be talking a lot about and evolving over the course of the documenting and the visioning process. I want to, building types, this is a really important concept in terms of trying to create sort of traditional neighborhood development as well as a context-sensitive infill. Just wanted to go through these really quickly, but what we call a commercial block, which you see all over your downtown, could also be very appropriate. This is actually a neighborhood serving retail center, the two-story commercial block building, ground floor retail, upper floor residential or commercial uses. We call this particular building, which is also in south of downtown, a mansion apartment. This is a really great sort of medium density building type that can be integrated into infill situations really carefully. There could be anywhere from 4 to 8 units in a building like this, and the term mansion apartment really comes from the fact that you really want this to look like a big house, and the big house that got sort of subdivided into 3 or 4 apartments so that it can fit in the context of buildings that are of a smaller scale, even potentially a historically single-family neighborhood. So we're looking at this mansion apartment as a type. This is a building type that many of you may be a little bit unfamiliar with. I know it's in the Juniper Point code as well, but it's the live-work building type. What you have here is flexible ground floor uses, and then a 2-story townhouse above that use, or in both of these instances. So the ground floor use can be used for commercial or retail uses, and then you have the 2-story residential condo above. The neat thing about this is one person owns this whole building, and so they can choose to incubate their small business, the architect, the photographer, the lawyer. They live upstairs and work downstairs, or they can rent that space out and actually use that rental income to help pay their mortgage. So we see it in a way to sort of bring the level of affordability of these types of units up a notch in terms of sort of that additional revenue income. And then sort of you can see this one has much more of a residential feel, and this one has much more of a kind of that Main Street downtown feel. And they both serve really good roles in terms of transitioning from those commercial areas into the residential areas. So that's a really exciting building type that we like to integrate into our codes. How many of you have noticed how many duplexes there are sprinkled throughout your